Okay. The next book is dedicated to me, which it hasn't came out yet. But this book is dedicated to my whole family. So I'd like to appreciate that I have a book that's going to come out dedicated to me, since everybody else in my family has one and I don't.
As some of you know, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to follow on that, but as some of you may know, about 6.5 months ago, I was arrested right after the G20 and have been, have since lost immigration status, was in jail for about 12 days on charges of conspiracy, and I'm awaiting trial on charges of conspiracy and counseling. And when I was in jail, I don't have any family in the country, and my friends came up to me, they were visiting, they're like, can you please, where do you want to stay, what do you need? We need a surety because the state requires a jailer in the community to be able to supervise me, to be able to free me into the community. And I was like, I have no idea I'm in jail. There were a number of people they were talking to, and then finally I heard that David McNally had, opened up his home and, was willing to put up tens of thousands of dollars up as surety to be able to allow me to come out. And for me, there's a lot of talk that happens. There's a lot of talk we have about organizing, about change, about connecting stuff like academia, intellectualism, and grassroots organizing. But to me, the sort of pivotal person, the sort of exemplary, is somebody like David who opens up his house, not just to me, because I come with a posse, dozens of organizers who are in and out all the time. And this entire McNally, Ferguson families opened up their home to me. And I think this is part of, I sort of met David in public settings, and he's this extremely kind, extremely caring, extremely honest and upfront person. And for some reason I thought perhaps there would be a disconnect, because we all have our public personas and we have our non-public personas. I surely do. What can I say? And David, 6.5 months later, I still don't think he does. He is just as kind, just as caring, if not more generous. And it's amazing. I have friends who will visit, and obviously I'll be late, and David will greet them at the door and have them, make them sit down and chat with them and make them tea and ask them about their day as they wait to supervise me out. And the intention is, for David to be, the sort of arm of the state. And I think I'm not sure how he feels about that, but I think what he has been able to do is he's been able to provide me the opportunity to continue to do political organizing, to continue to be able to share and be inspired by the work that's happening in the city. And if you wanted an arm of the state as radical, as revolutionary, as willing to stab the rest of the state in the body, David would be it. So without much further ado, let's welcome David McNally.
One of the problems of having great socialist friends is that they are incorrigibly generous. So of course they have said ridiculously inflated things, and I'm pleased to hear them, but I think we need get a little perspective and proportion here. And as for Liam, I think you figured out that basically what matters to him is that my next book is dedicated to him, and maybe to just kind of slightly lighten the atmosphere, I'll give you the title of that next book, which is Monsters of the Market, Zombies, Vampires, and Global Capitalism. That one is Liam's. Now, I'm going to read you a few passages from the book in a moment, but I need to start by thanking those amazing comrades and friends, Jasuk and John, Faria, someone asked me earlier today, how does it feel to be micromanaged by Hassan? I think you just saw it. As soon as I told him I was having a book launch, he basically said, I'll organize it. And so I've done nothing. Except, you know, I mean, I did write the book, but this whole event is really overwhelmingly his doing, and I'll say one or two things about that in a minute. I want to thank a few people, and I want to begin by thanking both Leo and Greg as editors of the Socialist Register, who, when they were organizing the launch for the Register, said, let's share the stage, let's do this together. And it was a generous act of solidarity, and I think it was a kind of example as to the spirit that we need on the left right now, of bringing forces together, of doing this kind of work together, both in gatherings like this, but of course on a much larger and grander scale of social political mobilization as well. So I really appreciate that spirit of solidarity, and I want to thank the Socialist Register and Leo and Greg as two of the three co-editors in particular. The book itself really in many ways originated out of a variety of forums in which I had the opportunity to begin to share some thinking about what this new phase in the history of capitalism means, what this crisis moment and crisis period means. And I want to just pay tribute for a moment in particular to some amazing sessions organized by the Popular Education and Action Project that really began in late 2008 and ran through parts of 2009, and the 5 groups that came together to initiate that. The Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, No One Is Illegal Toronto, the Coalition Against Israeli Apartheid, Socialist Project, and the New Socialist Group, because that was one of the moments of solidarity in which I have to say I felt my responsibilities rise. That is to say, we were grappling with what a wholly new period means in both the history of capitalism, but also in the history of the radical left. How are we going to come together and move what we are doing in this particular moment to an entirely different plane? To develop anti-capitalist movements and organizations on a much wider scale than we have been able to. And those kinds of coming together, those common fronts of action and education, which we're now experimenting with in other forums like the Greater Toronto Workers' Assembly, are really, I think, crucial to what we're about and where we're going. But it's also incredibly humbling to work with the amazing activists from groups like that. And I have to say, as someone whose political work includes writing books like this, it, to me, raises the bar, in a certain sense, of responsibility. The sense that you are responsible to and accountable to these amazing activists who are out there in the trenches and in the front lines, day in and day out, organizing, whether it's against Israeli apartheid, whether it's on migrant justice, whether it's to mobilize to defend the special diet, and so on. This is the work that matters day in and day out. And frankly, it's a privilege to be able to work with friends and comrades like that, and I hope that the book is at least a small contribution. There are a few other people, of course, I have to thank. My immediate household, and you've met Liam, my main man. Liam has 2 other brothers. He's very excited that I'm singling them out, but also our other wonderful sons, Sam and Adam. None of my work, none of it happens without the constant involvement, the love and support of my partner Sue Ferguson, and so I need to acknowledge Sue. And then, of course, as you've already learned, there is the adopted political prisoner in our household, Hassan. And all I can say is that, he came into this crazy household full of stuff just going on all the time, from baseball to music to running out and playing street hockey to having political meetings. And somehow he just totally fits right in and just brings more mayhem and chaos and so on into the mix. But also it just gives an opportunity to, when you spend so much time with someone like that, also to realize that the love and respect that you felt for them was so justified. And really, Hassan continues to amaze me all the time as just this outstanding organizer, activist, and person. One other person from my family is here tonight. That's my mother, Helen. And I want to acknowledge her. My mom has been, in recent weeks, fighting a very important medical battle herself, and doing it with all of her typical kind of absolutely sort of grinding persistence on the one hand and explosive complaining from time to time as well. But also, very few of you will know that for the last 10 years, my mom has been part of OCAP's phone tree, regularly calling around, getting people notified about the upcoming OCAP meetings and so on. So I want to also pay tribute to her. Okay, I gotta, kind of cut to the chase here because we've been going a long time. And so I'm just gonna read a couple of short passages to you because I want to share with you, I think, some of what's most important about all the discussions that we're having tonight, beginning with the Register panel and onward. So, first little section is about the crisis itself and this new period. And I'm describing what happened in 2008, 2009, and then I write. In short, the bad bank debt that triggered the crisis in 2008 never went away. It was simply shifted onto governments. Private debt became public debt. And as the dimensions of that metamorphosis became apparent in early 2010, the bank crisis morphed into a sovereign debt crisis. Put differently, the economic crisis of 2008-9 did not really end. It simply changed form. It mutated. With that mutation, the focus of ruling classes shifted toward a war against public services. Concerned to rein in government debts, they announced an age of austerity, of huge cuts to pensions, education budgets, social welfare programs, public sector wages and jobs. In so doing, they effectively declared that working class people and the poor will pay the cost of the global bank bailout. These payments may well last a generation, producing higher rates of poverty, more disease and ill health, even more under-resourced schools, and greater hardship in old age. And so, having set out the bleak picture of what our rulers have in store, I then later try to say a few things about how difficult, in some respects, living through this as a cultural moment is. Periods of enduring crisis and sporadic resistance are complex and dangerous. Desperation, anxiety, and hopelessness preside. The dominant class seems no longer to believe in itself. Rarely does it bother to espouse lofty ideals like freedom and betterment of the human condition. Yesterday's confidence has been replaced by a glum pessimism. Rather than trying to inspire belief in their system, society's rulers seem to have no higher purpose than maintaining the status quo, squeezing profit and privilege out of a decrepit but well-protected machinery of power. They know that talk of growth, development, and human improvement is idle chit-chat. They understand that their task is to make life worse for the majority. In this climate, our rulers grow increasingly spiteful and unaccountable. In this environment, a general lethargy and cynicism appears to descend on everyone. The same is true of the general mood today. The atmosphere we breathe is one of grinding, mind-numbing domination by faceless bureaucrats in business suits, their declarations parroted by corporate media and backed up by riot police determined to quell all dissent. Society seems bereft of any uplifting human cause. And yet there is more to the story of our moment. Below the surface, discontent accumulates. Oppressed people gather in community centers and union halls to organize rallies, strikes, marches, concerts, pickets, and festivals. Underground currents of refusal and resistance flow together, occasionally gathering steam. Anger and imagination converge to carve out liberated zones of activism. A swift outbreak of social protest, student occupations against education cuts, large protests by migrant workers, general strikes in Greece or Guadeloupe, a revolt by racialized youth, a week of protests against the G20, suddenly splatters hope across a landscape of despair. Crowds jam the streets, the people are on the move, police are pushed back. The thrill of solidarity and the sense of new possibilities electrifies the growing movement. Cries of, "This is what democracy looks like," fill the air. A festival of the oppressed transforms the landscape. All too often, however, the movement then stalls. The militants lack the organizations and infrastructures necessary to sustain mobilization when the tired bureaucrats retreat. The ancien régime regroups. Order is restored. And at that point I go into some pages of talking about the importance of building movements that can, over time, establish a social weight to prevent the demobilizations that tend to happen in those circumstances. And I continue. It is the nature of the transformative moment ushered in by the global slump that such protests, and with them the specter of revolution, regularly resurge. Our challenge is to be equal to this moment, to respond by building a genuinely radical, mass, anti-capitalist movement for the first time in a very long time. And skipping back, the building of such a new left is a momentous process. It means reawakening the magnificent dream of liberty and equality that has defined the great freedom struggles of the past. It involves drawing out everything that is most vital and radical in the struggles of the present. And it entails, finally, winning the battle for democracy in its most profound and ancient sense, rule of the poor. And if Global Slump can make a small contribution to that cause, I cannot tell you how utterly happy I will be. Thank you.